Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. We are very pleased to see many people here, and I can see the little clock going up with more people are joining us. If you have joined and you're online, please write on the chat good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever, so we know where you are
And where you are coming from.
and where
Good
you're coming
morning
from.
from.
Yes, or good afternoon or good evening. Perfect. Now, I've said that, but I forgot where is the chat. Okay, the chat is here. Okay, good.
I can see the chat, but no messages yet.
Not yet. They're gonna be coming. So what we'll do is we'll be funny for 2 or 3 minutes, or even more, so we can uh, get more people to join, and then we'll start the business. How about that? Oh, they're writing on the questions. Hello, good morning. Oh, I can see nice friends. Beatriz in Portugal, Godze in Chester. Very nice. Leonor in Porto. Very good.
I
Anybody who
don't
is
know
really,
why
really early in the morning? Anybody from the US?
the rest of us, at least me, I cannot see messages in the questions either. It
Okay,
must be
it's in the
something to
question.
do with the.
It's people are writing in the questions, not on the chat. It doesn't matter really. Uh, William had just put a note on the chat so you know
Mm.
where you're doing it. Yuli, hello from China. Hersada from Pune in India. My good friend Thomas in Bournemouth. Marina in Croatia. So far we go 168, 169, and goes on. We had about 500 and 50 people who have registered for the webinar. And normally we'll probably get a little bit more than 200 coming in at this time. Good. So we're seeing a lot of people come from different places. And I will. I'm about to start. Really, should I start? How about if I
Yes,
start?
we can. Yeah.
So, good morning to everybody. Let's do this so we know when to start the video club. I'm Dimitris Michalis, and I'm the editor in chief of Tourism Review. And we're doing these webinars with good colleagues and friends. So we are able to help our authors to do a better job in sending better papers that we can take through the process, and also to improve, especially PhD students and early career researchers, to understand the process of doing um, research and doing publications. I'm here with very good friends. I'll start from Cleopatra Veluccio from Glasgow University. Noel Scott, who is now affiliated with many different universities in Australia, but also in other places, and they're going to say what they're doing. Vanessa, who is from Mauritius, but currently in India, but she's a Mauritian girl, and you can see from the smile. Um, Gary in Malaysia, Ivana in Valencia in Spain, and Daisy in Hong Kong. Um, these events are happening because Emerald in I think Emerald Asia is able to host us. Gary has been instrumental in setting that up. There's a guy called William who is right at the back there in the controls, and he controls what I do and what I don't do, and he's hiding, but he's the person behind the controls, and he manages everything. And there is also Tete, who is now sleeping like a baby because it's about, I don't know, 2 o'clock in the morning in the US, who is actually has set everything up. She has given us our instructions, and we are to follow the plan. Daisy and Tete have become our deputy editors, as I'm going to say in a minute, and Daisy is going to manage us here with Gary, who is going to manage the questions, and he's going to manage all the other things. Is this what I was supposed to say, Daisy?
Then you have some formal material to say.
Okay,
I'm not sure.
this was the informal material, so I almost did the opening and the welcome. I don't know if people feel welcome enough, but um, uh, you're very welcome to join and have a conversation with us and contribute to this conversation. Introduction to panelists. Do I do that? I've just done that, right?
No, I do this. Yeah.
You'll do this. Presentation from panelists. They'll do this, so they need to do some work, and then we're going to have a discussion. In the meanwhile, if you've got questions as we're going along, please put them on the questions. So what's going to happen is that when we have the opportunity, we'll pick up questions. We are not going to wait all the way to the end, but Gary will be following the questions, and we're gonna have this a moderated discussion as we go along with the questions from the audience, and then we're going to have some closing remarks. Normally, I'm very surprised that these things take for 2 hours, and normally I find them that they're going through very quickly, and I find that they are very. People are telling me afterwards that they're very useful. So we are just about to reach 200 people online, which is absolutely wonderful. And so, can I have my next slide, Daisy, and I can do more introduction. So, for those of you who are new to Tourism Review, Tourism Review is the most established tourism journal. It was established in 1946 by two very innovative and forward-thinking colleagues in Switzerland, and they established Tourism Review as a process and as a way to develop tourism in order to develop Europe and tourism after the Second World War. This was their vision, and it started quite early, and that's why we are now 81 years old. Luckily, I was not in the beginning on Tourism Review. I started in 2016, 2017, and it's almost like it's crazy. It's almost 8 years now that I'm editing the journal. It started like a very small journal in terms of how many people were submitting, and now it is incredibly successful, and we get more than I think this year we'll have more than 2,000 papers submitted in. Next slide. So Tourism Review is quite inclusive. It has got a very long list of different topics that we do. So quite often journals are specialized on one thing. So some journals are specializing on sustainability, some journals are specializing on ecology, some others they specialize on things like economics. We are looking on the whole spectrum of tourism related things, and increasingly we only do tourism, so we don't do hospitality so much. We leave that to our sister journals that on the Emerald family and some of the other colleagues. So increasingly we are only just doing tourism because we've got enough content to do. But we are quite inclusive on the topics that we're addressing. So anything that's really, really interesting on tourism, we would like to get. Next slide. You can see our metrics, and Scopus citation track last year was 18. We haven't updated the slide. So in March 2026, the citation, the track was 18.6. And I think we'll end up with a side track for about 19 point something this year. As far as impact factor is concerned, we are 7.9 last year, and we will see where we're gonna be this year. Hopefully, it will be better. Make sure that you read the tourism review. Make sure that you cite the tourism review, because a lot of these metrics are quite important and demonstrate the quality of the journal up to a certain extent. What we are really proud of is how fast we are. And I just had a conversation Monday with Emerald, our publisher, and they told me that we are the fastest journal out of all their portfolio of journals. We're the fastest journal. That means that quite often you get the major advantage that we desk reject you, or we reject you faster than others. Is this a good thing? Rejecting you faster than others? Yes, it is, because there are journals out there that they'll keep your paper for a year and a half, and then they'll reject it. And then you're stuck in a situation where you don't know if you can publish your paper or not, and there's no progress. There's a lot of frustration with some of the other journals. We are quite good at pushing forward things, partly because I don't sleep, and partly because Daisy and Tete now do not sleep. And we've got a great number of very good associate editors, including the people that you see here, who are also very dedicated on what they do. And we thank them all because they're doing a good job at moving things forward. And then we've got a lot of very good reviewers who are also supporting this process. And we understand how important it is to have things that are happening quite fast, and that is we don't compromise on the quality, but we do things quite fast. Excuse me. Acceptance rate is about 7.6%. So that means that we've got almost 92% of rejection rate. 92% of the papers we receive, we reject. And I think that is really important to remember when you're preparing something, to make sure that you prepare it properly. I don't know if anybody is a friend of Sarah Dolniker in social media, but Sarah, who just completed her term as editor-in-chief of co-editor-in-chief of Annals of Tourism Research, she published yesterday a book about her experience as an editor-in-chief, and it's quite funny in a way that Sarah is very straight and very nice and very funny. She explains all the things that people are doing wrong with publications. I think you really must read this because it's quite entertaining, and also to understand how things are happening. Let me have the next slide. So what happened is that Tourism Review was almost forgotten in the rankings, and in the last few years we are growing and growing and growing, and now it's the 7th on the tourism journals based on the 2024 impact factor. Is it important with rankings and impact factors and all the rest of it? Not so much, but a lot of people, especially in Asia, they are looking to all these things as a proxy for quality. To be honest, I quite like to be well represented on all the lists, but this is not our main concern. Our main concern is what impact the journal has to society, to communities, and how can we support different activities and different communities based on the scientific research that we publish. Let me have the next slide. So you can see here the citations that we get per year. And you can see here the citation factors. Now, 2025, it's still an estimate. I would love that if it goes to that number, but we'll see what's going to happen. But this is the latest statistics, and we see how many people are reading the tourism review and how many people are citing the tourism review, and what impact that will have. The next slide, please. You can see that the different countries and different authors that they are reading and they are writing for tourism review. China obviously dominates a lot of the papers we receive, partly because of the population of China and partly because China recognizes tourism review as a top journal, and many universities is on the top of their wish list. So universities like Sichuan University, the Hong Kong Polytechnic University, Hsinchu University, and Beijing International Business Universities and Nankai Universities, they are targeting us quite a lot with a lot of papers. We see a lot of content coming from China and increasingly from India. Australia is doing quite well, Spain and United States. So we are very international journal. So we try not to be dominated by any particular country, but we still get quite a lot of papers coming from the countries with a big with a big population and a lot of research out. Next one. You can see the submissions per year. So 2025, I don't know why it says 1499. We had 1,510 submissions, and we accepted about 93. So what we do is we're publishing about 100, and so far we've been publishing 110 papers every year. For 2027, we will publish 120 papers in 12 issues. So we just increase the number of papers and the number of issues that we're going to have to accommodate all the papers that are coming in. So go to the next slide. And I've done my bit. So over to Daisy and to Gary to introduce our wonderful speakers. I'm very privileged to know all of them for a long time and to have worked with them in various capacities. So Daisy, over to you.
Okay, thanks, Dimitris. Well, is that still I'm sharing?
Sorry, before we go to the next presentation, there's a little survey that William has remind us that we would like you to answer whether you have published in Tourism Review, whether you have submitted Tourism Review but was rejected. Don't take it personally. We reject a lot of papers. And if you have never submitted to Tourism Review before, that's interesting. 9% have never submitted to Tourism Review. What the guys are doing? You should submit. And 4% has published in Tourism Review. Yay, success. Very good.
All right, I'm going to launch the second poll right now.
Okay.
Okay, so maybe we can, keep going, and then we can maybe later come back to the results of the thing. Oh yeah, here it is.
Just 1 sec.
Yeah, here it is.
Yes, I can be a reviewer. Please send us your nomination to become a reviewer. Those people who say I'm not confident enough, I think that you need to build confidence by doing. We encourage young people and early career researchers to actually participate and would like to see more people reviewing. Guys, like all the journals, we're struggling to find reviewers. And one of the ways that we are very fast at doing reviews is because we invite quite a few reviewers. So sometimes we've got some young people that they are not very experienced. Sometimes we've got people who are very experienced.
Dimitri, sorry for interrupting, but say where to let you know that they want to become reviewers.
They can,
So how they can communicate that?
Yeah, people email us. They can email us. Yeah, normally I get people who say, "Hi, can I be your reviewer, please?" And we are welcoming this. Okay, so half the people, almost half the people have been reviewers for Tourism Review, which is wonderful. So over to Daisy.
Okay, good. Thanks, Dimitris. So yeah, just in case you're interested in reviewing for Tourism Review, you can email Dimitris, me, or CC. We can definitely see your background and then input your information into the system, so you will be in the pool. Yeah, but thank you for support. Yeah, so now I know time is really limited, but I think we still need to have some time to introduce our panelists today. I think that's very important. That's our great honor. Firstly, I would like to introduce our guest of honor. Cleopatra Vallertoso is a professor of brand management at the Adam Smith Business School of the University of Glasgow. She's also a visiting professor at the Aristotle University of the Thessaloniki, Greece. Also, University of Coimbra, Portugal, University of West of Attica, Greece, and also the head of the marketing research unit of the Athens Institute of Education and Research in Greece. Her primary research is brand management, and she has published over 65 articles in international academic journals. She features on the top world's 2% most cited researchers across disciplines. She is currently editor-in-chief of Journal of Product and Brand Management and associate editor of Journal of Business Research and Spanish Journal of Marketing. So welcome, Cleopatra. The next panelist I would like to introduce is Dr. Vanessa Gurusu-Sunrika. She is a citizen of the islands of Mauritius. With almost 2 decades of experience in teaching, training, and research, Vanessa has brought her contributions to various international universities and education institutions. She is currently serving as an associate professor at the Indian Institute of Management in Sirma, India. Vanessa has also fostered partnership and facilitated cross-country collaborations in education and research in several countries. She is an editorial board member of a number of scientific journals and has earned various awards for her contributions to research and the women's empowerment in Mauritius, India, and Africa. Welcome, Vanessa. Our next panelist, Dr. Ivana Rihova. She earned her PhD at Bournemouth University in 2013 and taught on and led undergraduate and postgraduate courses in tourism and festival events management at Antigua Ruskin University in Cambridge and Edinburgh Napier University in Scotland. In 2022, she decided to leave the UK for Valencia in Spain, where she joined the University European de Valencia in December 2023. Ivana's research interests include value co-creation, social practices, and also transformative experiences in tourism and events. She has published a number of highly cited papers on C2C co-creation in tourism, and also regularly serves as a reviewer for many journals. Okay. Our last panelist, Professor Noel Scott. He is an adjunct professor of tourism management in Addis Cowan University, Australia, Mataram University, Indonesia, and the Delhi Institute of Technology, Timor-Leste. His research interests include the study of tourism experiences and destination management and marketing. He's a frequent speaker at academic and industry conferences. He has over 300 academic publications, including 21 books. He is a member of the International Association of China Tourism Scholars and a fellow of the Council of Australasian Tourism and Hospitality Education. So welcome all of our panelists. I think now is the time for me to pass the control to our first speaker, Professor Cleopatra Veloutsu. Maybe we can help to transform the show.
Before you do that, Daisy, let me Cleopatra's surname properly in a Greek way.
Oh, please.
It's Veloutsu.
Veloutsu.
Veloutsu. Cleopatra is one of the most senior editors that you find in different journals. She's got incredible experience, and she's actually my mentor quite often. If I don't know how to do things, I'm asking Cleopatra. Okay.
I like that. Yeah.
So you know a little bit of the background. Here you go, Cleopatra.
Now, I think that one of the important things that was missed in my CV, and thank you very much for the introduction, Daisy, was that I'm also honored to be in the Senior Advisory Board of Tourism Review. And I give a lot of emphasis in this role, and I'm very, very grateful that I serve Tourism Review as well. The way we organize the session is that each one of us was asked to answer specific things. And what I was asked to discuss about was editors' expectations for major revisions based on my experience from the Journal of Product and Brand Management, where our statistics are similar to Tourism Review. We received from 250 submissions in 2014, over 1,000 now a year. And in addition to talk about signals, about publishable versus risky manuscripts, common reasons for rejection after revision, and how to handle conflicting reviews. So this is what my presentation will be, and I will try to do that in less than 20 minutes because I know that the next speaker has a class now. In reviewing and in publishing, there are three main groups of roles: the researchers, authors, the editors, and the reviewers. And all these three work together, and they try to go to a common outcome to publish a paper. What is the problem in this process? And the problem that causes friction, the problem that makes very many people unhappy, one or in the other way, that they have different perceptions. What is deep, what is shallow, what is good, what is bad, is seen as differently from reviewers, editors, and researchers. In particular, researchers would like everything they submit to be accepted with no changes. And this is what most of us, including myself, as authors, would like to see. We would like to see our paper seen positively and accepted in the first attempt. Is that possible? If everything was published in Tourism Review, then very many papers that would not attract attention, would not make a difference in the industry. Somebody has the microphone on. Can you please? Yeah. So going back, apologies for that. So very many papers that don't have an effect in society, that don't have an effect in the industry, will not attract citations, will be published, and as a result, Tourism Review will end up being a not very strong journal. So in reality, what the authors want is not what is good for them if their paper accepted, for the journal, and for the publisher. Clearly, I don't want to live as somebody who will go to hell because I rejected too many papers without a good reason. We are all doing our best, voluntarily almost, to help good research to go through. And personally, I learned through the process, and I'm happy that I've been doing that for a long time. But I feel, and most editors feel that I'm discussing for, that we are in the publishing business. So we are not trying to reject papers. We are trying to accept papers. So believe it or not, I feel that most editors have in their mind whether papers submitted can be accepted and not which papers to reject. However, we don't want to accept any paper. We want to accept the best manuscripts submitted to the journal, because these will benefit the journal, the authors, and the quality, the rigor of the research in our field. Good editors put their signature in the journal, and I don't want to say that because Dimitrios is a friend of mine, but he explained how the journal Tourism Review changed since he took over the editorship. More submissions, higher impact, both in the industry and academic impact. So because of the choice of the editorial team, who are going to be the editors and associate editors, journals are going up or down. And I see journals changing significantly when the editors are changing. And I see journals struggling to find associate editors that can bring the level when it is expected, where it is expected to be, and pushing for that. So associate editors quite often join journals, stay for a very short time, and because they don't really serve what the journal asks for, they're then removed. The editors want to publish. The associate editors want to publish papers. What did we choose? Papers with impact. Dimitrios already discussed about that. Citations, intimacy of citations, mentioned in popular media, change in the industry. Quality papers with originality, significance, rigor, relevance. And these are the things that will go in their mind in all rounds. So both in Desk Reject, that we are not covering today, and later on in Revise and Submit. What is happening in the Revise and Submit? In the Revise and Submit, papers have already gone through one round, or papers have been already sent out for review, and the editor now is in a position to make a decision whether the paper is going to be given one more chance to work and improve and possibly get through, or it's going to be rejected. Now, important point for you, I don't have the statistics for Tourism Review, but I have the statistics for the Broad and Brand Management. Papers might be rejected for no revision. That might happen in a round later on. Revisions are required, and this is another output, or rejected, and sometimes, unfortunately, rejected in a later stage. Now, what the later stage will mean depends on the journal. Dimitri said that most of the papers in Tourism Review are rejected early. In other journals, you might have papers rejected late. I have heard stories of being rejected in round 6. Horror stories, in my opinion, because it's been 2 years in the process. So the statistics I was planning to share with you are from the journal I'm editing, and I can have them. Look at those. These are the papers we processed on the right-hand side, and it's growing constantly. The accept, the reject, the desk reject, and the withdrawn. Notice that the desk reject was 77% in the Journal of Product and Brand Management last year. And I keep these statistics manually, which means that only 23% of the papers went out to reviewers. 2% of these papers were decided not to be submitted from the authors, were withdrawn. The rest were almost half and half, 10 and 11, accepted and rejected, which means what? That about half of the papers that go through the review process after desk reject, or 40%, tend to be accepted. In other words, rather than feeling bad when you are asked to have one more round of revision, throw a party, because you are closer to acceptance and you have more chances of acceptance. And if I had the ability to give statistics on how this works per round, you would have seen that in every round have more chances to go through. Now, what goes in the minds of the customer, of the editor, when reads the reviews, the paper, and makes a decision? Is the issue of the stand important? Already answered that in desk reject, so the answer there is typically yes. Is the conceptual development good and relevant? Possibly it's again a yes, according to his or her opinion. That's why the paper is out for review. Is the research design appropriate and adequate? This is another question, and together with the question, is the analysis appropriate and completely done? Has the study put in context in terms of literature and in terms of sector? What's the contribution to the literature, not just the context, especially for journals, not for context journals, the papers, not for context journals. So, for example, Tourism Review is asking more for context. But if you go to the Journal of Marketing Management, the European Journal of Marketing, the Journal of Product Brand Management, we will look for papers where the sector is the context. Is the paper interesting and have a well-written story? All of these questions have been already answered by the editor, and they are yes. What is the difference now? You get consultancy advice from the reviewers. The editors will always make the decision. So it's not the reviewers who make the decisions. The editors will read the paper, will read the reviews, and will inform their decision, and they will revisit the answers to that decision. I'm not expert on everything. Quite often, reviewers bring me expertise on methods, for example, or on contexts, or on subfields that I don't know well. This view, and possibly articles they suggest, will inform my decision. And what the reviewer said is important in this context. And I am expecting, if I give an option to the authors to revise and submit, to debate with the reviewers and convince me that the authors have a point and the reviewers don't. Do I feel that if I give the option of revision, authors will be able to revise on time? So if the conceptualization is revisiting, there are issues with the data, the writing is problematic, is it feasible in a revision round? Now, what is a revision round varies. In some journals, it's for major revision is 1 month. In other journals, it's as long as 3 months. And some authors would like to have 9 months to revise. 9 months to revise is too much. 3 months is too much as well. So I have to consider if the work needed to allow the paper to have another chance can be done in the window. And this goes to my mind when I make the decision on the spot. And on top, with this paper read and cited, will it make a difference to the industry, to the way we're thinking? Based on that, editors make decisions, or at least I do, and most editors I have spoken with. By giving a major revision is like giving a conditional investment that this paper has a potential. It might meet the publication standards. There is room for growth, but you need to work hard and put serious effort to improve it. So if you get a major revision and you decide to spend 2 days doing some addition of references here and there to support existing comments and write a quick answer to the reviewers and send it back, chances are that you decided that this paper should be rejected because you didn't put the work needed. So you need to sit down, and later on, I know that there's a presentations on how to do that, and work very seriously. And quite often, for the full time that the editor has given you to revise the paper and produce a lot of additional work to support this change. Be careful. Don't try to protect what you have. This is my precious, I will not change it. Don't try to defend. Try to be open, see where the reviewers might be right, and make changes. The more you protect, especially without evidence from the literature, the less likely it is that the paper will indeed improve. This paper will stay with you for the rest of your career, and it is your baby. Editors will not have any credit about this. So it's in your best benefit to have the best paper published because you will carry it for the rest of your life. And you might need even to go and read a totally different literature, methodology, approach, a literature you were not aware of. When I was younger, much younger, I had the paper under review, and the reviewer said, "Oh, you haven't read the social inclusion literature." And I said, "No, I don't know that this thing exists." And I have to spend several weeks finding papers, understanding what it is, because indeed this argument was very relevant to the paper, and I had to rewrite the whole argumentation based on that. So be open to read and do new things. Now, what happens when reviewers tell you totally opposing things? The one asks you A, the other one won't ask you B. You do not have to follow anybody. The paper is yours. But what you need to do is to argue on what you follow and what. You need to pick a side and justify. Remember, it's your work, and I have seen very established authors withdrawing papers because they don't agree with what the reviewer said, and they say, "I am an expert in the area. I will not do what the reviewers say because I don't agree with that." The editor should be convinced from the arguments you make and with the conversation you have with the reviewers. So your job is to find very good justification, not just "I think," "I woke up and I thought," coming from evidence that will help this particular answer you give and this particular route you have. So this is what you do when reviewers disagree. Remember, through the process, editors expect the papers to grow and improve. So when they say it's a very risky situation, you might need to totally rewrite it and demonstrate how it was improved through the review process by resubmitting your revision. You are entering to the next stage of the journey of publication. So your work is a journey towards publishing. It doesn't mean that because you submitted the revision, the paper is going to be accepted. I have seen papers being rejected in very advanced rounds when authors cannot manage to argue and convince about what they are doing. But in any case, I will repeat, every revised submit is a reason to party. If you want to have a glass of wine or a whiskey, it's good. If you are not into alcohol, drink a Coke or go for a sauna, or go for anything you read, shopping, somebody was saying earlier, anything really you like. Now, Dimitris asked me to add that this is a revise and submit letter for one of our papers, and I think that my co-author, Sergio Osuna, is in the audience today. It is a 2019 paper. It was 32 pages of a response. It's not the longest response letter I have written. The reason I'm including it is because it's for a paper published in the Journal of Product and Brand Management that I'm editing. So I have to do exactly the same, even in the journal I am editing. And in this case, somebody else is making the decisions. I don't know who are the reviewers and what the decisions are. And I have to defend as I defend in any other journals. So ethical publishing asks that from every author at any point in time. It's not easy. It's not easy for me. I think that it won't be easy for you either. But the more you do it, the stronger you get. If you keep in touch with publishing and trends, and it's getting harder and harder year after year, you keep your shape, you are getting stronger, it is getting a little bit more manageable. That was all from me. Thank you. You can find me in LinkedIn. I would like to thank Tourism Review for giving me the opportunity to share some of my views, and I managed to finish on the time I had in my mind. That was all.
Okay, thank you. Thanks so much, Professor Cleopatra Veloso. The honor is ours. It's really great to hear from you about those insights. Well, I'm sure there's a lot of questions and suggestions asking from you from the floor, but we will keep for those questions at the end. So before we finish, okay? So if you have any questions, please leave us some comments in this question function, please. Okay, so now let's move to my side. I'm gonna share it again. Good. Are we all here? Nice. So the next speaker for us today is Professor Noah Scott. So now please welcome Noah. Please share with us your insights about this how-to revision, please.
Thank you, Daisy, and thank you, Professor Cleopatra, for your wonderful words. I can see that you've spent a lot of time, usually between 5 o'clock in the evening and 11 o'clock in the evening, reading papers and working on your journals. So yeah, well done. What I want to talk to you about, and I think yes, is to read reviewers' comments. By that I mean we're in a situation where you have submitted a paper and you have got the reviewers' responses. Now, there's, of course, a number of options. The three main options are reject. 90% of papers get that. Then but there will be reviewers and comments. Or you may get major changes, minor changes. Getting minor changes or indeed a straight up acceptance is very rare. The idea of reading the well, I suppose that the two situations is reject or some type of opportunity for review. If you're rejected, first of all, you always read these comments as soon as you can. Before you respond to them, before you think about them in detail, what I try and do is put them aside for a while. I'll read the review comments, and if I get a major revision, I'll start cheering, and if I get a rejection, I'll probably put it aside for a couple of days just to let my emotions drain away. So the first thing I want to say to you is that when you're reviewing, or when you're getting this feedback from people, it can be very personal. It's something which this is your work, and so you put a lot of effort and time into it. Remember that the reviewers are not talking about you as a person. They are dealing with you with your ideas that you've put down on the paper. Okay, so it's always good to try and address review comments after you've put the emotion aside and can deal with the situation logically, okay, or in a calm way. So if we can go to the next slide, please. I think that will start to talk about these issues. Yeah, so separate the emotion from what the reviewers are trying to tell you. Use your emotions to try and address the reviewers' comments as well as possible, but don't get caught up in emotion. When you're reading the reviews, I suppose what you're doing is you're comparing your knowledge about what is required to write a paper and how you have filled in those boxes with what the reviewers comment, what the reviewer thinks. There are some areas of your paper, of any paper, which are mandatory. They're areas which you have to address in your paper, your original paper, in some adequate way. Typically, these are your contribution or demonstration of originality. Second, it's your ability to demonstrate that what you're doing, your paper, fits in some way to an existing body of knowledge. We might call that theoretical positioning. The third area is you did it well. It's methodological credibility. You did that. You did your study in a way which allows people to believe you, essentially. And then fourthly, you've submitted it to the right journal. If you have in some way addressed those things, you haven't used the wrong methodology in the eyes of the reviewers. If you have sort of said to the authors, I am doing this study because I'm trying to address some important theoretical area, and here's the evidence for why this question is needed. If you have demonstrated that you've actually found something novel or interesting, and if it's something related to tourism, then you should get, in my opinion, you shouldn't get a rejection, okay? You should get, maybe there's some flaws in what you've said, but there are some mandatory things that you have to address. And if you have especially made provided evidence that you've made a contribution, then I would expect the reviewers' comments to say, at worst, major revisions. Okay, so what we're talking about is knowing, before you submit, knowing what the key things are that people are looking for in a paper: contribution, theoretical positioning, methodological credibility, and submit it to the right journal. There are other things that are less important. Okay, they're still important, but what are some of the most, jotting them down here? Where are they? Oh, yes. So sometimes you might get comments about recent citations or clarifying particular points of your paper, like sampling, or expanding the limitations, or improving the flow of the paper, or elaborating on implications. those are all important but fixable problems. Okay. And then there are things which are fairly minor: polishing the language, clarifying minor points, formatting issues, adjustments of definitions or things like that. Okay, so when you're reading the reviewer's comments, you're trying to work out which areas the reviewer's comments fit into. Are they about big problems, like you have no contribution, or no, you haven't provided evidence of a contribution? If that's a problem, you're likely to have got a rejection. So when you're reviewing these comments, you're looking at them in terms of certain levels or signals, the risks that you are facing. If you haven't got a contribution, if you haven't got a theoretical positioning, it's a high risk, and you are probably leaning towards some sort of rejection. If they're important but fixable, okay, you've probably got major reviews. If you've only got a couple of minor issues to fix, well, you're getting minor reviews. So the overall comment, or the overall level of your review, what they said about you: accept, minor, major, reject, tells you something about where your problems are. Okay. If they're in the major big problems area, probably you haven't written many papers before, and you may be unaware of what a contribution is, or you may be unaware of how to provide evidence of your theoretical positioning. As an example of that one, theoretical positioning, many papers that I read say there's been lots of work in terms of area X, but no one has done research in this related area. Therefore, I'm going to do work in that related area. That's an example of poor theoretical positioning and poor questions, because it means that you're saying, hey, all you people out there who've written papers before, I'm the only person who has thought that there's a need for research in this area. Aren't I smart? Okay, that's what you're saying. Instead, especially for early career researchers and PhD students, don't do that. Instead, write your paper on the basis of addressing a pre-existing problem that you have identified in the literature, which comes from Professor Buhalis. Right? What you say is, Professor Buhalis wrote this paper, and he said that there was an area for further research in this area, and I have done that. Okay. Now, what would that mean? That would mean that you are demonstrating a key, that you know the literature, you've read some, and that you are not coming up with your own problems. You're positioning your research into some existing stream of literature. And you don't have to justify that you have you've found a good question, because you can just simply say, look, I don't think about me. My question comes from Professor Buhalis. If he's got this, then if he said that there's an important question and you don't like it, ask him. Okay, so you've got a defensible question which is positioned in the literature. Next, you need to use the methodology. That's not so hard. Methodology comes from the prior literature and follows the theory. So finding the methodology but implementing it properly is a problem. Then working out if you answer Professor Buhalis's question properly and can justify why your answer is good. That's your contribution and originality. Okay. So I think that if you get a rejection, mostly it will be because of one of those 4 areas. And the key way of avoiding rejections is don't address your own problems. Address a problem from an existing stream of literature, which some professor or someone has already said is a problem. Okay. That means a second reason for doing that. That means that you are contributing to an existing conversation. By conversation, I mean there's a group of researchers who have an interest in that particular stream of literature. There's Professor Bahalis, Professor this, Professor that, these people, some PhD students. And so when you're writing your paper, you're joining that conversation. And the one thing that professors don't like to hear is, hey, you guys, you've been doing all this research in this area, and you have forgotten that there's a need to do this research over here in this other area. Okay, that's presumptuous for a junior scholar. So once you get 10 papers published, then you can start thinking about establishing your own research area. But it's very difficult to do right from your first paper. Okay, so read the reviews. If it's a, I would say, if it's a reject, establish what you don't know about contributions, theoretical positions, methodological credibility, or fit with the tourism industry. And that's where your key learning will be. You will then have to address those issues, rewrite your paper, and submit it to another journal. If you don't spend the time to rewrite it and rethink your ideas, it will be just rejected again, because it's breaking, or it's causing, it has problems with the critical areas that a paper needs to fix, to have. Okay, and okay, then it's about distinguishing what, sometimes reviewers' comments are a bit cryptic. They might say, oh, look, the literature review is unclear. Oh, okay, well, that's a problem. What does that mean, though? What they may be saying is, so there's a problem with your literature review. That's the first step. A reviewer may not have the time to tell you exactly what you need to do. It may be there's a problem with your literature review, but there's something fundamentally wrong with the type of literature you've used, or the flow of the literature in terms of establishing an argument. So you need to go back and identify what is the best practice for writing a literature review. Okay. And clearly the reviewers are telling you, you're not doing that. You're not giving best practice. So the reviewer may not give you the exact exact criticism, because there's probably a number of problems with your literature review, and they don't have the time to be your supervisor and go into it in a lot of detail. Okay. But what they're pointing to is you're not writing your literature review in a best practice way. So go back and start diagnosing why your literature review has a problem. Next slide, please. Okay, so then prioritizing. So read the editor's comments, because they, editors are busy people too, but sometimes, or hopefully the editor will be able to direct you to the key areas that you need to address first. If there's none of that, then you need to reconcile the views of the different reviewers and somehow group them together into key areas. It's a sort of qualitative thematic analysis. You're trying to identify where the problems are between these different texts, the different reviews, to identify, and I would be grouping them into areas such as big problems, contributions, theory, methodology, tourism, area that you're studying, or fixable ones like citations, sampling, or minor ones. So try and get them into groups and prioritize, first of all, what the focus on what the editor says, and secondly, focus on the big problems that you've got. If the reviewer said your contribution is weak, you need to deal with that. And you've got to spend some time working out what your contribution is, okay? So, so prioritize into the key areas based on the reviews. As I said, important, interpret vague feedback. So when they say things like your theory is weak, or no, sorry, if your contribution is poor, then you've got to be clear what your contribution is. There are basically 2 or 3 contribution types. One is applying an existing theory in a new area, developing or adding to an existing theory, making a methodological contribution. Those are pretty much the 3 main things you've got to do. So you need to be very clear about what your theoretical, methodological, or application contribution is. And you've got to be clear about what's genuinely new. There's a lot of, when you're talking about contributions, there's a lot of waffle. I have made a contribution is one thing that I read a lot without much evidence of what that contribution is. Okay, you've got to reconcile conflicting reviews. Not every reviewer is perfect. Most of us are reviewing at 8 o'clock at night and we've had a bad day. So we try and do our best. Firstly, identify the key big problem areas, especially if 2 or 3 of the reviewers have identified them. And make a list, okay? Make a list and actually copy down what each reviewer said, group them together, because you're going to use a table like that when you're responding to the review comments. Often you will develop a table of a table to address the reviewer's comments verbatim. You'll put them down and then you'll say, okay, I have addressed this issue with these in this part, and here's my argument. If you do that, then at least people know that you've read their reviews and that you're making an attempt, okay? But putting them into a table enables you to group them into themes. So I would say, if I had to think of a process, so you've got to get the reviews, deal with them in a non-emotional way. Okay, don't set fire to them. That's probably not a good idea. Perhaps try and deal with them in a more logical way. You're first diagnosing. What have I done wrong? Okay, where is my big problem? Are there any big problems, or have I got a minor review and I just got to fix some citations? So the first step is triage, or diagnose, then triage, rank them in terms of big problems, medium problems, and small problems. You may have to interpret the reviewer's comments because they can be cryptic sometimes, but usually if they're cryptic, it's because the reviewer didn't really clearly understand what the hell you were saying. And then finally, develop a plan. You might write a little summary to plan your review response, or how you're going to revise your paper. You might say, okay, I need to, the key direction that the reviewers are pointing me to is my contribution. So I need to know clearly what best practice in writing a contribution is, and you might go away and research that. Anyway, so those are just some ideas. I hope that was useful for you. I do apologize. I can take a couple of questions now if there are any, but I have got a class to teach, unfortunately, so I will have to go now. But thank you very much for the time, and I'll hand back to the moderator. Thank you.
Thank you, Noz. Yeah, meanwhile, I'm a little worried about your class time, but I'm not sure if it's possible. Gary, do you have some like comments or question in the chat box?
Yes. There's a question. Let me just read it out. Theoretical positioning. Does this mean that people join the conversation and all are based on theories? Some journals outright reject papers that do not investigate a topic using a theory, example, theory of planned behavior, testing the attitudes.
Okay. Well, great question. And you've mentioned one of my favorite topics, theory of planned behavior. So if you're writing a paper, you are joining a conversation. Now, you may say that you're joining the conversation which relates to use of theory of planned behavior, okay? Unfortunately, there's a bigger picture. If you're studying, if you're using theory of planned behavior, you're looking at maybe decision making or how people do things, how people make decisions and decide to choose a holiday or something. You may have decided for some reason that there's a lot of papers about theory of planned behavior and you're going to use them. Problem, you are not aware of the background criticisms of the theory of planned behavior. You have grabbed a theory of planned behavior, and you've said, oh, well, I can use this because all these people are using it. It's no excuse. You need to know the history and current status of the theory of planned behavior in the literature of tourism and perhaps in the wider literature. And unfortunately, fortunately, there's a paper written in 2019 by Asgen and Kruglanski and Asgen, which says, they don't say it clearly, but in essence they say, Asgen, who came up with a theory of planned behavior, said, oops, I was wrong, okay? And Kruglanski was right. And basically saying, you can't just use theory of planned behavior now, you've got to understand which goals a person is trying to do, and then that will determine the social norms and other things that you can use, as is in the theory of planned behavior. And by the way, don't use intention because it's a waste of time. So unless you're aware of the criticisms of the theory, you're starting off in a conversation which is old and dated and not using primary theory. So you can join a conversation, but you've got to join the right one, is what I'm saying. Hopefully, and that's specifically something that I think about in terms of theory of planned behavior, and additionally in terms of SOR theory. That's another little pet hate of mine, and SOR theory is outdated. Not many people talk about those issues in tourism, but they're very important. Thank you.
Noel, just to thank you for sharing your incredible knowledge and for also all the work that you're doing for Tourism Review. I'm aware that you've got a class, so let me release you, and I hope to see you soon somewhere nice.
Thanks, mate. And I'd really like to congratulate everyone. This is a wonderful idea to have these things, especially for all the people who are online. You know, you've got access to lots of knowledge here, so use it. Thanks very much. And unfortunately, I better go. Bye-bye.
See you later.
Thank you, No. Hope your class goes on well tonight. Okay. Good.
Thank you.
Now, yeah, thank you. Shall we invite our next speaker? Here we go. Yeah, Vanessa to share with us her views about how to revise the manuscript. Please, Vanessa. I think you're muted. Let me see. Unmute request.
Yeah, it's done.
Oh, great. Yeah, that's fine. Great.
Yeah. I am very happy to see the number of participants that we have today around the world. And I think for me, it's a real honor to contribute to this webinar associated with Tourism Review, which we all know now it's the longest established journal dedicated to tourism issues. And we have been publishing since 1946. This is a great thing. I was not even born. So talking about my topic today, as you know now, I will talk a bit about how to revise the manuscript, specifically what changes are needed, how much revision is enough, and how to align revisions with the journal's expectations. So many of us remember the moment when we received the reviewer's comments on our manuscript. What we do, we open the file with excitement, and sometimes within seconds, that excitement just disappears. It turns into confusion and even panic. So today I will talk a bit about how revisions are not really obstacles. Rather, they are actually the stage where good papers become publishable papers. And let me begin with a small story that many of us may relate to. Let's say like a researcher submits a manuscript after months, sometimes years of work. And a few weeks later, the email arrives from the journal. The subject line reads, "Decision on your manuscript." And the author opens it with excitement again and then sees several pages of reviewer comments. And this has happened to me so many times. And let me tell you, even today, I do cry sometimes. I don't know from where the tears come, but it becomes just like my colleague, Professor Scott was saying, we become so emotional. I don't know why. At this stage, we are supposed to be mature, but still when we see those decisions, tears come out as if we want to cry like a baby. What has happened? What went wrong? But at that moment, we have got the two reactions that are very common. Either it's going to be frustration, why so many comments? Or confusion, or even where do I even start? But experienced authors eventually realize that revision is not simply about correcting a paper. It is about transforming a manuscript into something that truly fits the expectations of the journal and its scholarly community. Because otherwise, if you have chosen a journal and you want to publish in that journal, you have to make sure that whatever you are producing aligns with the journal expectation. This is really very important. So change slide, please. Thank you. So talking about step one, it's already a good news to have a revision. But of course, we have also seen from my other colleagues that having a revision doesn't mean that your paper will get published. But still, it's a good news. And also, it's very important for you to remember that not all the journals, they are going to communicate the decision directly by email. They expect you to check your manuscript status and take action. You would see, I have given you an example. I've extracted it from one of my email. You would see that you would see that it's we read it like, we have received the above reference manuscript. You have submitted to International Journal of whatever, it has been assigned. To track the status of your manuscript, please log in. So which means that if you're going to wait for the journal to send you a personal email that this is the decision about your manuscript, you might wait forever. So it's very important for you to first understand and make sure that whether there is not a need for you to log in and stay always in permanent touch with the journal system, because not all the journals will send you their decision. So if you're going to wait for that, you will wait for very long. And then what happens? You miss your target, and unfortunately, you'll be late. So very important, you have to make sure that you go online, you check into your system, and try to check the status of your manuscript. This is very important. I made this mistake, I think, a few years ago. Then As from that point, I always keep on checking. I go online. I get the messages also on email, and sometimes I do not. So I make sure that I go in the system and check the status. They will give you all the information about whether one reviewer has already reviewed it. We are waiting for another reviewer. So you get lots of information. Now, now that when you receive information from the journal, what you're supposed to do, you have your co-authors, of course. If it is a solo paper, fine. But if you have co-authors, you have to share the comments and have a meeting. And it's very important to divide the work and set a deadline. And these days, what is happening, let me tell you, this is my personal experience. I see that especially I am in an Indian context. Of course, I will relate to the Indian context. I can give examples from India. So we see that there's lots of authors. They are very interested to publish papers, to write papers, because this will help them to have a promotion. But then they do not sometimes realize that it's not only about publishing. Publishing paper does not just like we do it just for promotion. It's also that we are advancing knowledge. We are also, we are extending and advancing knowledge, contributing to existing body of knowledge. So this should be the real focus. And we all know that with the existence of AI now and ChatGPT, what is happening? Sometimes you would see that authors, they just pass it through ChatGPT and they generate the answer, which is really very bad. I always tell my students, even my colleagues, my PhD scholars, that it's really very important for you to be genuine. You should be you. You can use AI to guide you, to assist you, but you should not make AI dictate you. Your ideas are your ideas. So coming back to our to our stuff that we are talking about, it's very important to be very genuine and to address the comments the way they are. Next slide, please. Daisy, next slide. Yeah. So what changes are needed? Now, of course, you have received your comments from your reviewers, reviewer 1, reviewer 2. Usually when you're addressing the comments, there are various ways of writing addressing the comments. First, of course, you have to read the comments and address it by one, because if the reviewers have taken time to give you specific comments, you have to show to the reviewers how you have addressed it. You should not address it in a generic manner. Many times we are so overloaded with work and we do not have time. So we want to do the shortcut. And this is really very bad. I feel that whenever we receive comments from reviewers, we have to allocate a whole day. It has to be a priority. We cannot put the reviewers' address in between work. If we have got our work, we address our work, we complete our work. We need to have a very clear mind and a very peaceful mind to be able to do that. I'll take my own example. For example, if I have got, recently I have got some comments to address for my paper, I am not able to focus on that because I have got lots of other work. I'm a head of department. I have got PhD scholars. I've got lots of work to do. These are my realities. So what I do, I cut off from my workplace. I am not going to talk to anyone. I say to them, I'm taking a leave today. So this day is going to be my day and I want to address my comments. And I have to do it perfectly and properly because I have to also respect the reviewers who are taking time to give me my comments. It's like they are doing my work. I have made a mistake and they are helping me to correct my mistake for free. I am not paying them. It's happening for free. So I should say thank you to them. So I stay at home. I try to address. Now, there is also another reality. Whenever you're addressing the comment, it is not necessary that you will be able to address it on the same one whole day, depending on the number of comments you're having. Most of the time, what happens, you might start addressing one comment, and then at the end of the day, you realize, oh my God, it's already 4 p.m. Because you're not able to do it at one go, because our mind does not work like a robot. We work, and then sometimes attention span is no longer here. What I do personally, I will do something. If I feel that I'm not able to focus, I'll go and play with my cat. I'll go and play with my dog, and then I'll come back. Or I'll try to watch a movie, a funny movie, and then I come back. This gives me some ideas, like, refreshing of my mind. Otherwise, if I keep on focusing and focusing, I might not be able to address the comments properly. So whenever we have to address the comments and whenever we are doing it, we have to make sure that we show it to the reviewers. Reviewers will not have time to guess where you have made the changes. There are various ways of doing that. You can highlight, as you can see here, I've shown to you, you can highlight it. And also, while highlighting it, you can also write a rebuttal table. In the rebuttal table, you put the comment in one row. In another row, you put the address. You say thank you, and then you address. You show how you have addressed it. It's very important. You can also write it. You take the comment, you copy the comment, you paste it, and then just after that, you put response, and then you write your response. Of course, you say thank you and whatever, and you explain where you have made the comments. You should never write, we have revised accordingly. It's too generic. It's amateurism. According to me, I call this amateurism. It's just like a shortcut. When you're doing something, you have to specify where you have done it, what you have done it, how you have done it. You have to indicate the pages, indicate the lines, quote the revised paragraph. It helps. It also gives confidence to the reviewers. Yes, that person has really addressed the comments. Can you change, please, Daisy? So how much revision is enough? Of course, this is a very confusing kind of question, because how much is too much? How much is, I don't know how to explain that. So we have word limit. Do not forget, whenever we are submitting a manuscript, we have word limit, 9,000, 8,000, depending on the journal. You have to make sure that when you're making your revision, you're not going to write so much that you exceed your word limit. This is something very important. So you have to make sure that whatever revision you're making, it's going to fall within the word limit. And revision is enough when the manuscript no longer invites the same criticism. If you're going to submit first revision, you see you're getting the same criticism, then there must be a problem. It means that you have not addressed your comments. And all major concerns are substantively resolved. This is where you would know that revision is no longer needed. And it would be reflecting clearly in the manuscript text, which means that you're going to write properly. They have asked you to do X, 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 and you have shown, yes, I have completed, I've done X, X, X. Exactly. Don't go beyond. Don't try to outsmart. If they are asking you for 2 kinds of theories, don't give them 4 kinds of theories. Just give the 2, because you have to also think about the word limit. And then, of course, you can have a new reviewer test. For example, if a fresh reviewer reads this version, would they still raise the same concern? This is where sometimes we need to have a critical friend. And unfortunately, in this academic world, we all know it's difficult to find critical friends. Sometimes when you're writing a paper, you want to give to someone to read, because that person, when he or she will read, he or she will be able to spot your mistake, because you do not see your mistakes. Even if you're going to share it among co-authors, they have been doing the same thing, they will not be able to do that. So it's always good to have a critical friend. And this is a bit challenging. I can understand that, because I go through that also. It's very difficult to find someone who would like to give time to your work. Your work will be published, the name is not appearing on that. What is the interest in doing that? So we need to have genuine and critical friend as well. Next slide, please. Now, how to align revisions with journals' expectations. Of course, you are publishing, you're going to submit a paper to a specific journal. First, you will try to understand what are the requirements of the journal, what are the expectations. It's very important. You should first check the journal's website, very important. I will give you my own example. Recently, I am still into that crisis. I have got a paper, I think it's going to be 2 years now. I don't know where is the problem? It is not getting published. Whenever I'm submitting the paper, the journal is telling me, I think this paper is not aligning with our journal, go to another journal. It has happened 3 times. I have talked to my co-author, I'm asking, am I so bad? Is my writing so bad? What is wrong? So sincerely, I don't understand at this stage of my life. I have published so many papers. What is wrong with that paper? I don't know. The first journal, just like Professor Dimitrios was saying earlier, that sometimes you submit a paper to a journal, they take 1 year to give you the reviews. And then after 1 year, you're confused. You no longer know which way, what I have written. Let me check again. And then after 1 year, your data becomes obsolete, because you're not going to be able to do that in 2 months, 3 months. Taking into account our workload, we are not able to just do that. We are not just researchers, we are also teachers. We are doing projects and everything. So this is a problem. That is the reason why I really appreciated when Professor Buhali said that we are the fastest to reject. Yeah, we should reject if there is a rejection. It's better for the authors. because they would know there is something wrong. They will improve the paper on the spot. We should not wait for 1 year to give a rejection. So for this not to happen, that is the reason it's very important. You go on the journal's website, you try to see what type of papers usually come, what are the expectations of the journal. And of course, before revising, you have to reread. You have to understand the aims and scope of the journal. You're going to get it on the website. You have to also read a bit about the recent editorials. We do have, and it comes in open access. We have to try to understand what is, the expectation, what are the expectations of the editor-in-chief, because the editor-in-chief is an experienced person. He knows exactly, he knows his terrain, he knows what is needed for the journal. And it's always good to read 5 or 6 or even 2, 3 articles, recent articles in the thematic area where you are publishing, to understand whether you are really contributing to existing body of knowledge. Just like Professor Cleopatra was also saying, you have to make sure that you're contributing to existing body of knowledge, means existing conversation. Professor Noel Scott also said the same thing. So this is very important. And also you have to always decode the editor's letter strategically, because the editor, usually it is a very big burden. If I would be an editor one day, I think it's going to be very, very difficult for me to reject a paper. I am very bad at that. I'm telling you openly, I'm very bad. Even I'm failing student, I'm very bad. My heart is going to, oh my God, should I fail the student? I think he should be given a chance. But I have got a very soft heart, and I think that to be an editor-in-chief, we have to be very strong and rigorous. I do not have it yet. So we have to read the editor's letter strategically, decode what he wants to say, because the summary often signals what is non-negotiable and what is a major conceptual weakness. Finally, I would say that revision is not about correction. It is about repositioning your manuscript so that it speaks the intellectual language of the journal. And next, please. I think it's done now. We do not have.
I think that's all. Yeah, for this part. Yeah, thanks,
Yeah.
Vanessa. So thanks for this very wonderful, useful sharing. I think we will leave some questions at the end. Okay.
Yeah, I will.
Now, please, thank you. I think now it's our turn to invite Ivana to share about her views about really how to write down and how to really point-to-point reply to these reviewers' comments in the document. Please, Ivana.
Yes, hello everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. So I'm at a little bit of a disadvantage because I come last, and some of the points that I wanted to talk about have already been addressed, but hopefully I'll be able to add something to that. So Daisy, let's start with the first slide. I've only got a couple, but just some bullet points here that I wanted to talk around. So my bet was the actual document that you'll be writing when you get your decision to resubmit, to do a major revision, or even if it's minor, you always ask to address somehow the reviewer's comments, and you should indeed do that, even if it's something really, really small. And some of the journals actually give you specific format to address the comments in, either just as a letter to the editor and the reviewers, or an actual table as a template that you'll be given, and you just fill that out. Normally the templates is both Noel's Professor Scott and Vanessa as well mentioned, will be in a table format. So that's kind of the generally accepted format that you'll be seeing in most of the journals. So firstly, why should you even do this? Apart from the fact that it would normally be a requirement, it also shows willingness to engage in constructive revision. So it demonstrates that you're indeed willing and keen to get your paper published, and also shows academic integrity and a respect for the peer review process. So absolutely really, really important to do this, and to do this very, very well. And as a matter of fact, I'll put that on the next slide, but I'm going to say that now. I think the response to the reviewer's document quite often is just as important, if not more important, than the actual revised document that you're going to be submitting, because that tends to be the first thing that the reviewers will actually have a look at when they get that revised paper back. So absolutely pay a lot of attention to it and spend as much time on it as you need to get this right. So, as I said, first thing, table format tends to be the easiest way to tackle this. And I would normally start with a short paragraph just to sort of as by way of introducing what are the key comments that have been addressed and the key revisions that have been made, mainly kind of as a response to the editor and what the editor's recommendation was, but also to kind of give a thanks, obviously, to all the reviewers. Sometimes you'll see in these tables every single point starting with "Thank you very much for the constructive comments." I find that a bit onerous. It kind of gets a little bit boring quite quickly. So it's generally okay just to start that as an introduction. And then you jump straight into the table. And this is where, again, as Nora was telling us, actually dissecting those comments bit by bit. And Vanessa was also talking about this. So how do you actually then look at each of these points that the reviewer is making? So first, reviewer one, then actually literally copying and pasting what are the comments point by point. And sometimes it is a bit tricky to kind of see, okay, what is the point that the reviewer is actually making here? What is it that how should I interpret this? I mean, the interpretation, obviously, it's up to you, but you should still copy and paste the comment exactly as it was and then try and think, is this just one thing or is these actually several things? And I tend to just sort of take it paragraph by paragraph or sentence by sentence, depending how detailed the reviewer's comments are. And then just sort of doing it and addressing in the same sort of section of that table in small paragraphs how I think I'm interpreting it, what I think they're actually saying here. So yes, addressing these key issues, either firstly the editors, if there are some specific things that you need to address, I'd actually add that into the table. But again, this depends on what you're being asked to do. And then starting with reviewer one. So deconstructing point by point, finding combinations and prioritizing. Again, Professor Scott talked about this, is actually trying to group the comments and prioritizing them. I actually like to color code them when they come in. So I kind of copy the text of the response email into a Word document and then just sort of color code it. So, right, here's the introduction. This is about the aim. Here is the literature review. This is about the conceptualization and the theoretical contribution and what I actually need to, what I need to do in the literature review part. To make sure that I've addressed all of the theoretical lenses that I need to bring in. If there's additional references I need to put in, then the methodology, and then the sort of findings and the conclusions and the key kind of contributions which should come at the end. And that allows me to do two things. If I kind of have it color coded like this, I can then, in the response to reviewer document in this table, check that I've actually looked at everything that everyone has said. And also it allows me to sort of copy and paste the relevant responses that I've used for one reviewer, perhaps for another reviewer, because remember, all the reviewers will get the same document. They will see each other's comments as well as the responses. But I think most people just sort of tend to zoom in first on what their comments were and how you responded to those. But I tend to then see, okay, so I've said this to this person. Now make sure that I actually make the same point to another person. So I do tend to kind of copy and paste things, but obviously making sure that I'm actually responding in the way that the reviewer would expect me to respond. So I kind of cross-reference these different comments in that way in the table. And some people even number the responses so that you can say, okay, I've already talked about this in response number 2. I wouldn't cross-reference, as I said, between the different reviewers' comments, but within the same reviewer response. I think that's completely fine. If I'm cross-referencing between them, then I kind of copy and paste it just to make sure they don't have to search within the response document. The other thing I wanted to mention, and again, Vanessa, I think has already talked about this, so explicitly responding to them. So be very, very specific and explicit in actually writing out the response. So starting with, you're correct, I agree with this. So say, okay, what is actually my position on this? I agree with this. This is a very valid point. And then the following change was made. So you say what the change was, and then really important, you have to very clearly indicate where in the text the changes were made. And again, I'm repeating something that you've already heard. And again, there's different positions here. Either you very specifically point to a place in the revised text. So say on page 2, paragraph 3, line 27, this is the change that was made. I tend to do that if it's a small change that I made in the text, and then kind of cross-references with the revised document. But sometimes it's easier to actually copy and paste the text from the revised document if it's not too much text. So so yeah, copying these revised blocks of text versus just pointing to a specific place in the revised manuscript, again, depends how much it is. Remember, the idea is to make it as easy for the reviewers to see what you did and where you did it, so that they don't have to spend a lot of time kind of searching through the revised document and potentially even looking through track changes that can get quite difficult. It can be a bit tricky to see. So normally in the revised document, you would highlight the text that has been changed and then sort of cross-reference that to the actual table that you've got in there in the response to reviewers. What else? Can we move to the next one? So yes, I've already said this. Very important to get this document right, and Professor Galluzzo has already mentioned this as well. It's the tone and the language and the kind of emotional fallout of the reviews. That's something that we need to kind of deal with quite often, and it can actually sometimes be reflected in the response to reviewers. So just as we heard before already, is make sure that you take a little bit of time. So writing the response to reviewers document can take a very long time to do that well, and it should take a long time because you should actually allow yourself a little bit of time to read it, to reflect, to see, okay, what is the tone of these responses here? Am I potentially being overly defensive? Am I potentially being a little bit aggressive? Because sometimes the comments will be, oh, this is not clear, there's something, and you feel, but I did talk about it, I did address this in the manuscript, they didn't see it. So you might feel tempted to say, though it's here, I'm pointing it out in the text. But it may well be that it doesn't actually come across very clearly. So the fact that the reviewer is making that comment should be an indication for you that actually you need to clarify that point in the text. You need to make it very, very obvious. Describe it slightly differently to try and see, okay, so perhaps I do need to actually revise it. So always think, hey, take a step back. Remember, the reviewers are they should be trying to help. So okay, how can I actually use this in the rebuttal, in the response to those comments? Think about that in the same way. So be respectful, professional, and use constructive comments, obviously, when you're responding to those suggestions. I normally write it in the present perfect. So I have done this, or we have done this. And obviously, again, being very specific, very breaking it down into the specific points that you have followed, the steps that you have followed in addressing those comments. Things like, again, the actual responses that you're writing. So thank you for the comment. We have considered it. The rebuttals, that's the other issue that authors often ask is, how do I actually, if I feel that this is not a right point, or I feel like this is something that I have already addressed in the paper and I want to defend my position. So what's the kind of language that you should use? So again, saying that it's not a common approach in the literature, or other papers or have been published in this journal use a similar strategy, or I believe that this will make the paper harder to understand, or those kinds of statements would be perhaps too vague or non-scientific, and again may sound a little bit overly defensive. So actually making sure that you writing things constructively and you justifying your responses based on the scientific reasoning is really, really crucial in those responses, in those rebuttals. And so you could also say things like, okay, well, we're actually going to now address this in the limitations, because yes, we believe this is a valid point, but perhaps it's out of the scope of this paper. Some of those comments, you'll quite often see them in the rebuttals, and usually I think that will be acceptable. So again, brevity, keeping responses concise and to the point is really important. That was the last thing that I wanted to mention, because again, reviewers are very busy people. They do this out of the goodness of their heart, and they want you to make it as easy for them as possible to see what it is that you've actually done as the author. So again, keeping the document concise, not going into too much depth, but at the same time making sure that you have justified all those points correctly, and avoiding overly long explanations, justifications. That again can be a little bit off-putting, and the reviewers may sort of lose their patience by the end of finishing reading it. So that could potentially be a little bit dangerous from the author's point of view. So again, thinking about who's this going to read it, the audience for your response to reviewers is just as important as the audience of the paper. So again, just to summarize, keeping it concise, keeping it very specific, professional, to the point, and again, well justified is, I think, for me, one of the most important things for these types of documents. I don't know if there were some questions I think in there that I wanted to come back to, but we'll probably do this afterwards. So I think that's it for me.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Ivana. I will keep some questions at the end. I'm conscious about the time because we have two the panel discussion, guided discussion. So we have two questions, actually. I would like to invite all the panelists to come back. Dimitris and Gary also invite, please. Yeah.
Daisy, just before you go there, first, let's thank everybody for the incredible insights that they've provided to everybody. And I think there was a very insightful recommendations to everybody, and I think that's great. And I can see 220 people are still with us all the way, so that says quite a lot. I think before we go to the panel discussion, I think from Gary has been collecting some questions, and I can see many questions. Let's actually try to answer the questions of the audience first before we go to the panel discussion. So Gary, do you have any specific questions?
Yeah, we have quite a number of questions. Okay, I'm going to start with the first question. What if a reviewer provides only general feedback without specifying the context or background of their comments? What strategy should the author use when responding in this case?
I think what Ivana was just saying, it was really good. I just made a cup of tea because of my my throat, and color coding what are the comments and actually addressing neatly all the answers is the best possible way. But also you're going to have, I mean, with Tourism Review, what we're trying to have is we're trying to have 4 good reviews on the first time, on the first decision. So it's typically 3 to 4 reviews. So even if you have one reviewer who is actually not doing a very good job, you'll have another 3 to address. And even if it's generic, some of the generic issues will really need to reflect, and like Vanessa was saying, get a critical friend to actually look into that. So it's really about addressing everybody. Next question.
Okay, the second question. If a manuscript goes to a second round of review and a new reviewer is added who introduces many new comments and requests major changes, what is the best way for authors to respond, especially when these changes make it difficult to stay within the journal words limit?
Okay, let me start this and then I'll ask Cleopatra to come into that. This is the thing I hate as an author, because you have started with some reviewers and then all of a sudden new reviewers are coming and they're telling you different things. It very rarely happens in Tourism Review, and it happens in 2 occasions. One is if the original authors for some reason are unable, unwilling, whatever, to provide reviews in subsequent process, and it can happen when you've got reviewers who are fighting with each other. So they've got very different approaches, and one says reject and the other says accept. In this case, we're sending two fresh pair of eyes to look at it from the beginning. That's the only two reasons why we'll do that. Other journals are doing that to me as an author. They just send it to new reviewers, and I think that's really, really bad. But Cleopatra may like to say something on this.
We even more rarely introduce new reviewers in the process.
Yeah.
If the reviewers cannot review, we try to review on their behalf, the associate editors and me, based on the previous comments, because we feel that this is unfair to the authors to introduce new comments later on. The reason that new reviewers might be introduced is because authors, excuse my friends, blew it. What do I mean by that? I've seen authors in their response to the reviewer's letter to some point to mention their name. So when we screen the paper and the response to the review, clearly with 1,000 first submissions a year and with another 1,500 revisory submissions every year, we cannot spend for every paper an hour reading in advance all the response letter point by point, all the 20, 30 pages. So if our skimming check doesn't pick up that the author by mistake or intentionally mentioned their name in the response to the reviewer, this is when we introduce new reviewers. But I have experienced that as well. It's very frustrating. If this happens, the editor can be asked why this happens, and you need to remember that the end goal is to produce the best possible paper, and it's your paper. So always approach the comments to the reviewers. So off I go. Goodbye.
Okay, next point, Gary. Gary, we lost you.
Okay,
Gary, you're
sorry.
muted.
Yes. Sorry, I have unmuted myself. So the next question is regarding on AI. So I would like to ask whether if an author is not a native English speaker and does not specialize in English, is it acceptable to use AI tools to correct the final text of a manuscript? If this is allowed, what risk might it pose in terms of desk rejection or final rejection? For example, is it possible that an AI detection tool might indicate that the text is AI generated when in fact it has only been corrected or edited by AI?
Cleopatra?
Now, we all used to use copy editors in the past, and some of us still use it. If you decide to use AI, you need to use it as such. So you shouldn't ask AI to change your argument. You shouldn't ask AI to enhance your argument. The only way that you can use AI and be eligible, according to most publishers, is check the grammar and the syntax. Now, if somebody takes exactly the text without considering it at all, copying and pasting, 9 out of 10 times, if not 5 out of 10 times, mistakes will be copied. Why? Because AI doesn't have the intellectual capacity to understand the deep meanings of quite a lot of our terms. So change these terms and make things looking lighter most of the times, or looking fake because of words we never use. So using AI should be similar to working with a copy editor. And yes, many publishers have introduced tools that can detect overuse of AI. So if you write a paragraph and then you go and you say improve and extend and from one sentence it gives you 3 paragraphs, then it's not your writing anymore. So what you submit should be your writing, but only improved in terms of structure of the sentence from AI. This is what the common practice, the current practice, not common, current practice and current advice is. Now, I would suggest to this particular person to keep an eye on the editor's websites, because the AI advice is changing often. I don't know if what I say today is going to be appropriate in 6 months' time or even tomorrow, because the publishers might change their policy and it might be publisher specific. So we lay and so on.
We've got another 2 or 3 minutes, and there's another meeting that I need to start with associate editors. So we have another 3 or 4 questions maximum, and with short answers. Gary?
Okay, another question. If any comments is tough to implement, how to respectfully deny that the given comment is hard to implement or will change the length of the manuscript? Or should we never deny for such any comment?
Vanessa? You're muted.
We cannot hear you, Vanessa. You're muted.
Yeah. Okay, fine. Yeah, I feel that as an author, when we are writing a paper, we are writing something very original. So if we are writing original, we should also respond original. So which means that if you feel that you have a difficulty to address a comment, you have to clearly write back to the editors and explain. And it has to be something which is valid. It's not that because you have lots of work, you have lots of responsibilities, you will not be able to implement. Because if the reviewers have given you the comments, it means that those comments are justified and you have to address them. Now, if you feel that it's going to have an impact on your length of your paper, so you as an author, you want the paper to be published, you should know how you find your way out to make sure that you shorten it a bit, but you make sure that you address the comments. But I would say that we have to be very honest. Just like when we are writing, we write honestly, we are making original contribution. Even in terms of the reply also, we have to be honest that yes, we want to do that, we thank you for that, but this is going to be the impact, this is likely going to happen. I feel this is the way how I would have addressed that if ever I had this type of situation. I hope I've answered the question.
Thank you. Next question, Gary.
Yeah.
Okay, regarding the assessment of a manuscript contribution, what specific criteria do the journal prioritize? A, theory development papers, and B, theory testing papers. Are there different expectations for novelty?
Cleopatra, I can see you smiling.
Yes, because in the 14 years I'm editing, 13, 14 years I'm editing the Journal of Product and Brand Management, I don't think that we published a single theory development paper. And this question demonstrates to me that what is theory development is something that many academics are not very well aware of. So in order to answer this question, I would like to see what they feel that theory is, and I would suggest to them to read papers on what is theory and understand what the meaning, deep meaning is. So very few theory building papers, and very difficult to develop. But I'm sure that Dimitris might have a different view.
Okay, the people are coming to the next meeting, so I think we're just over our time, and I just want to say thank you to all of you for making such a wonderful webinar. we can see that most of the people who joined us are still with us, and that actually shows how useful they found. And I also can see a lot of comments and hearts and congratulations coming through. I would like to thank Ivana, Vanessa, Noel, and Cleopatra for their sharing their knowledge and their expertise and providing all these wonderful suggestions. I would like to thank Daisy for chairing, Gary for facilitating, and also Tete, who is hopefully sleeping like a bird, for organizing that, and William for keeping us in control at the back. And the time just came into 0, so we're just on time. Thank you very much. Make sure that you read the tourism review, make sure that you use the tourism review, that you suggest it to your students, and make sure that you join us as reviewers, as contributors. Now, one of the questions I saw early on, and I didn't answer, is how do I become a member of the editorial board, and how do I become assistant editor, associate editor, deputy editor, and editor-in-chief? And quite often I get a lot of emails that say, can I be part of your editorial board, or can I become your assistant editor, associate editor, or whatever? We're just offering these positions to people who are doing the work. So the only way that you're gonna be promoted to those positions is by contributing. And Ivana had just joined us partly because she probably has done more than 10 reviews last year, and Vanessa has been doing that. So all the people who are part of the editorial board of Tourism Review have not been selected because they are friends or because they are people I know or whatever. They are based on the credit that they build by contributing to the journal, and this is something that we'd like to develop, and therefore that's an open opportunity to actually contribute to the journal. Thank you all, and the webinar will be online, so you can share it with your colleagues, and look forward to see you again sometime soon. Thank you. Goodbyes.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye. See you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.